Hello everybody, my name is Kai. Welcome back to Warframe. Today, we'll be taking a look at Wukong Prime specifically. Wukong is just one of those frames that you just pick up when you don't really want to play the game, or if you're just looking for the easiest run of any content you've ever had. And that is why he is the most popular frame in the entire game. I know that they haven't really released the 2022 usage stats yet, but I would be hard pressed if he is not in the top 5, and even more surprised if he is not in first place. With all of that being said, I think it's time for you guys to see the Wukong build that I have for you today. Here we are in the sim. Let's go over his abilities, why don't we? Wukong's first ability, and the one that makes him so popular, I'd say, is his Celestial Twin. Casting Celestial Twin will allow Wukong to split himself into two forms. Your second form essentially functions just like a Spectre that is armed with all of your weapons. What that means is your Wukong, or your Wuclone as some people like to call it, will use your equipped weapons. So right now he's using my Glaive Prime, but if I am to pull out my Glaive Prime, he will swap to using Phantasma. Obviously he will be killing a lot better since I am currently modded for a heavy attack build on my Glaive. But if I were to swap to my Epitaph here, and then equip my Glaive from here, I can get him to use the Epitaph. Although he will stun himself because I don't know if he can be knockdown resistant. Currently, my Wuclone, as some people like to call it, is using my Glaive Prime to attack targets. But if I swap to the Glaive Prime myself, he will begin to use the Phantasma, which is obviously going to be a lot better at killing these enemies, as I have a heavy attack build on my current Glaive. If I swap back to my Phantasma, he will go back to using the Glaive. And if I pull out my Epitaph right now, he will stay on the Glaive, although you can get him to use both at the same time. It just depends on the order that you equip things. To get the Wuclone to use secondaries, just swap to the secondary and then to your melee, and then he will use that. Although he will stagger himself, but this is great, especially for something like the Glaive Prime, because when modded for viral on my Epitaph, it allows me to do a hell of a lot of damage. That leads me on to note that yes, your Wuclone uses your weapons, which means obviously he uses the mods that are currently on them. So like I just said, my Epitaph is modded for viral and radiation. So when he shoots enemies with it, it does exactly that, because it is the same gun, just given to your clone. The clone has a health multiplier affected by strength that will just multiply the health that he spawns with. Right here at 3.26, it affects his health and his shields to give him a spawn of 1210 and 1512. You can also mark targets for your Wuclone by just tapping the ability key again when aiming at an enemy. For example, if I equip my Glaive and spawn him, he will be using my Phantasma. And if I mark this target, get him a little closer, he will now deal, yes, 3 times damage, and on something like the Phantasma, that is a hell of a lot of damage. Again, all you do is just press the ability key again at a target to mark them. They will get that icon above their head, and they will take 3x damage from your Wuclone. Your Wuclone will do its best to stay near you, which means quickly teleporting to you if you get far away, and also sprinting alongside you. It is designed to aggressively attack enemies, but will stay near you. And where did he go? There he is. He just tries to follow you to the best of his ability while also attacking enemies at the same time. The reason that this ability was so popular in years past is because of things like giving the clone a Kuva Brahma. But now, after some recent changes, the twin shares its ammo reserves with you. So if you're using a Brahma and you give it to the clone and you had 3 shots, you're going to very quickly run out of ammo. Obviously, there are ways to get around this, but it is a little too restrictive. So giving it a powerful weapon that does not struggle with ammo so much, such as the Phantasma, is just an all-around great choice. His second ability, and why he is generally regarded as the best spy frame in the entire game, is Cloudwalker. When casting Cloudwalker, Wukong will unsurprisingly become a cloud. You gain 300% movement speed in this form, and also have sort of like 3-dimensional movement. If I can move right here, so you can move up and down, left, right, forward, and anything, and aim in any way to just move that way. Sort of similar to Arcwing. While in your cloud form, you will be cleansed of all status effects, also invulnerable to damage, and you will restore your health at 1% per meter moved. Obviously, when you're moving very fast, it is very easy to restore all of your health very quickly. Passing through enemies while in your cloud form will stun them and open them up to melee finishers for 2 seconds only. This actually has a very wide base range meter of 8, so you can pass nearby a big group of enemies and stun all of them. You can also manually cancel the ability while in it to reduce the duration, and you will gain all the momentum that you had coming out of it just into your corporeal form. The speed of your cloud is actually not affected by things such as sprint speed. The only ways to affect this are with something like Saren's Malt. Malt provides a speed multiplier. So does the mod Dispatch Overdrive, which can be equipped on melee weapons and states that on heavy attack hit, plus 60% movement speed for 15 seconds. So sprint speed mods do not affect it, but Saren's Malt and the Dispatch Overdrive mod do. When using them combined together, your speed is ridiculously high. I come over to this gunner, cast my Molt, and get Dispatch Overdrive up, the Cloud becomes very, very fast. Another way to affect this is with Volt Speed, but that is not a helmet ability, so obviously you cannot consistently use it on Wukong. There are lots of synergies between Cloudwalker and the rest of his kit with Celestial Twin. One of those being you can restore your twin's health when using Cloudwalker, the same as you. The twin during this time is also invulnerable and will instantly teleport to your side when the Cloudwalker ends, but he does not enter Cloud form and is still able to damage enemies while in this, on top of regaining health while you are moving around in this state. Wukong's third ability and his helmet ability is Defy. When casting Defy, Wukong will pull out his Iron Staff and become invulnerable to damage and new status effects. It will also increase his threat level to make all enemies around him more likely to attack him. This is because while you are channeling Defy, enemies will shoot you and you will build up damage. In the top right, you can see I'm at 40,000, and this will be redistributed back to enemies in the form of impact damage. As you can see in the bottom right, it also gives me an armor bonus that is a maximum of 1500. Hitting that cap with Steel Path level enemies is very, very easy. So even with like negative duration type builds, you can hit that very easily if only shot for even a couple of seconds. The damage that Wukong receives is multiplied by 7.5x at base, and there is also a radius that this damage is redistributed to. Now, this damage is impact damage. It has a 100% critical chance and a 2x multiplier, so take whatever you get, times it by 2, and it will be redistributed to every enemy in the area as impact damage. The duration of the ability does scale off of the ability duration stats, so technically the longer duration you have, the more damage you can build up to then do more damage with this ability, as it is purely tied to enemies doing damage to you. With lower level enemies, this ability is kind of a meme, one, because it is a survivability ability, and the damage that they do is kind of negligible, so even though it will kill them, it is a lot more efficient to just outright shoot them. But at higher levels, this can sometimes be useful if you are in a pinch and need to just get out of an area. Even though you do have your movement speed reduced by 50% for 2 seconds, it makes you invulnerable to pretty much everything and is a room-wide AoE knockdown if you build for any amount of range. Activating Defy with a Celestial Twin up, your twin will copy you, do the same thing. Your twin will also gain the same increased threat levels, so all enemies are more likely to shoot them, and any damage they take is added to both of your caps. So you will both redistribute the same amount of damage, and it will be even more, since if he takes 50,000 and I were to take 50,000, we would do 100,000. Times 2, 200,000 impact damage is not bad. The one reason this ability doesn't scale very well is because 1, it is impact damage, and 2, it is, again, against armor, not very useful. But against those really, really high level Steel Path enemies where they're pumping thousands and thousands of damage into you every second, you can build this up to some ridiculous numbers and actually one-shot most enemies. The fourth ability on this build is Gloom. This is obviously not Wukong's base fourth ability, that being his Iron Staff, but this melee is just really not that great compared to other melees, so we use Gloom. Gloom is a fantastic, fantastic ability, and there are lots of reasons that we use it on this build. But first, I think it's a little bit more important that we go over why I'm using Gloom on this build, because surviving with Wukong is really, really easy, and you know that I'm not the biggest fan of Gloom because you can throw it on Hydroid and he can do Steel Path, because it's very, very strong. But the reason that I'm specifically using it with Wukong on this build is because of the Celestial Twin augment, Celestial Stomp. The Celestial Stomp mod is an augment for your twin that allows you to command them to perform a slam with the Iron Staff onto the ground, which will then suspend enemies into the air for 6 seconds, and they also require an additional 2 seconds to stand up. This is an absolutely fantastic ability for Gloom, because Gloom provides a slow on enemies. If I am to stun them with my Cloudwalker, you can see that this animation takes longer than it normally would, because it provides a slow up to 95%, which is achievable at 272 strength. Because Celestial Stomp suspends enemies in the air for 6 seconds, and then the 2 seconds are kind of negligible because they should be dead by then, this means that we can extend that 6 seconds by however long our slow is. So if I get my twin out right now and stomp the ground, these enemies are effectively CC'd for a very, very long time. Besides the slow, Gloom also provides you with a lifesteal, so on damage, not on kill, you just gain lifesteal for your weapons, which allows you to heal yourself very, very fast. Sadly, this lifesteal does not apply to your clone, so your clone cannot heal themselves, but you will basically be able to stay topped off at max health at all times when you have Gloom active. Talking about Gloom being an active ability, it is a channeled ability, which means that when I cast it, With no enemies in my area, I will not lose any energy, but the second I move into the radius of some enemies, I will start to lose energy at about 1.88 a second when you have hit the cap of 10 enemies in your radius. Obviously, you can affect way more than that, but that is why building for efficiency is so great on Gloom, because it allows you to keep it up pretty much all the time, because losing about 2 energy a second is not a big deal. But it is a channeled ability, which means that using things such as Zeneric's Energy Wellspring will not grant you energy. Just to demonstrate here, standing in the pool, and I'm still not gaining any energy. This is just because if you could gain infinite energy while having channeled abilities active, that'd be kind of broken, but you can't. With modding for efficiency, the Gloom drain is so low that it won't really be that big of a deal, as long as you're getting kills. I think now we should go over our build on Wukong so I can show you how to achieve the optimal stats for a build like this. Starting off with the augment, obviously this needs to be slotted here so that we can get that synergy between the Stomp and our Gloom to practically infinitely slow enemies. Now, Gloom is a channeled ability. On top of that, it also really likes efficiency, but we are running 42 duration here. If you're unaware, channeled abilities are affected by duration, but Gloom is a bit different. If you hit the 175 efficiency cap that is shown in-game and have negative duration, you will have higher drains. But for some reason, when you add Fleeting Expertise, which gives you 60 ability efficiency, and Streamline, which gives you 30, those add up to 190, but that is not shown in-game. That extra 15% ability duration that is not shown here makes up for going negative 58% on our duration. So, because of this, none of our other abilities are affected by duration in any meaningful way for a couple of reasons. So it doesn't really matter going this low. You just need to have 42 duration. That is why I'm not using Prime Continuity here. 1, because you can't fit it, and 2, because we only needed another 30 on top of the 12 that we had. While running such low duration does affect our Cloudwalker and our Defy, it doesn't affect our clone in any meaningful way. In no way, actually. Cloudwalker, while a very, very useful tool for spy missions and the like, we are only using it here because, like I said earlier, it is a status cleanse and a way to heal your twin. Now, your twin shouldn't really be taking much damage since all enemies will be slowed, they will have an armor bonus from Defy, and they will be stomped in the air with the Celestial Stomp augment. So, this is great as a replacement for Rolling Guard, because we do not need the status cleanse from that, because we get it from Cloudwalker, and it's very, very quick at 0.85 seconds. You heal your twin a little bit, and you cleanse yourself of all status effects. Defy, on the other hand, is affected, but I think it's outright better to just be killing enemies rather than using this to kill enemies in the big wide AoE, even though we are building for range. This, you can still build up to the 1500 armor. I think that 1500 armor is kind of worthless. You just need to make sure that enemies are not slowed by Gloom if you're trying to get that cap on here, and the armor also won't last very long, so you don't really use this ability that much other than when your twin is about to die and you want to save them. But that's not even that big of a deal since you can just recast the ability. Our run range mod on the build is overextended. This gives us 90%, but it does come with a negative of 60. This is completely counteracted by the Arcane Molt Augmented. Molt Augmented provides you with at max stacks of 250, 60% ability strength, which puts us to 223. That is then added to by Growing Power to give us even more. Now, this is great because Gloom gets a higher percentage on its slow and lifesteal the more strength you have. So adding another 85 strength to this build does wonders for it. Arcane Energize is here because you are going to be having this ability active. And even though the channeling cap is 1.88, being able to have a reliable source of energy through Energize is always nice. The damage and the health multiplier on your twin is also affected by strength, so more of that means your twin is a little bit tankier. This is a zero forma build with some fairly accessible mods. We're not using any prime mods here. The Umbra mods are given to you when you complete the sacrifice, and these corrupted mods every new player should have very early on because it's very easy to farm those very early into the game. The only thing that most people might not have could be Growing Power and Molt Augmented, but I 100% recommend you buy these as Molt Augmented is one of the best arcanes in the entire game. Do you need Energize for this to work? No, not necessarily. But if you are using this build on anything other than the Steel Path, it's kind of inefficient because everything dies there and you don't need the slow and the stomp or whatever. So this is mainly a Steel Path build if you're newer. I know Wukong is very, very popular and lots of people like to use him. So if you don't really know what to put on your Wukong, use this build because this will do you perfectly fine. In your Exilus slot, I actually recommend the Preparation mod. This allows you to just spawn with maximum energy. If you didn't know, the amount of capacity that you have free after all of your mods are available, take it up. So if we had, for example, 10 energy here, that contributes to how much energy you spawn in. I don't know the exact numbers, but just having this allows you to instantly toggle your Gloom and get your Twin out without having to kill a couple enemies to make sure you don't run out very quickly. Other excellent mods like Prime Surefooted, just Surefooted, or Handspring, which I think is better than just base Surefooted if you don't have the Prime version. Power Drift, Cutting Drift, those all work. I just like to stay at a nice range of 190% because this gives Gloom a 30-meter range. It also gives you a 38-meter stun range on your Celestial Stomp. This is great because Gloom, I don't like to build for very high range for. Why do I not like to do that? That is because it goes through walls. So you could have enemies affected in another room that will not be getting towards you because your Gloom radius is too wide. You want your range on your Celestial Stomp to be higher too, but not too high because you won't be affecting the enemies that are near you, which is kind of meaningless. I think 190 is a perfect place to sit at for you to not have a couple of inefficiencies with your own Gloom. On the topic of weapons, I think it is fantastic to use the Phantasma or the Phantasma Prime on your Wukong. This is because obviously he uses your own weapons, and melee weapons, especially the glaive, since he will never throw it, are not really that great, because they just use the neutral combo, which is like the standing still and pressing your melee button, and they're not really efficient with melees. So giving them the Phantasma, which it's just a monster for crowds, will allow you to really easily have your Wukong get some damage out. Obviously, huge AoE weapons like the Tsar or the Brahma would be better, but after the ammo nerfs, the Phantasma is my recommendation. You could also use the Epitaph, because I'm going to be using the Glaive Prime in tandem with this build. This is just great because your Wukong can use the Epitaph to prime enemies with Viral, which will then increase the damage of your Glaive Prime's status procs. The Wukong and his clone are just so strong in general that I find that you can really use anything you want on him. Now, I have 2 Azure Archon Shards for Energy Max slotted in him. This is purely for a speed spy build that these don't really do much other than make it a little easier to maintain your cap. But if you're getting a lot of kills with this build, which it's very easy to do so, you won't really struggle with maintaining energy, especially with Energize. Focus Schools here, you can kind of use whatever. I'm using Matarai, doesn't really matter. You can also use Unairu and Vazarin because these help give you defense, and that is the one thing you might really struggle with Wukong, because this build is not so heavily built into defense like pillage builds are and stuff like that. So Unairu and Vazarin work fine, but not necessary at all. And that's the build, everybody. Wukong is just like really good. This is not going to be a problem like at all, paired with arguably one of the best helmet abilities, and just the fact that like Wukong just does shit. This is let me just show you. Here we are in Mott in the Void on the Steel Path, my favorite place to test things for you guys. Now, 2 things. I am using a Panzerwolf Phyla. Using the Glaive to get those slash procs is boosted by Viral that this provides, but also never dies. Best endurance pet, come at me. I'm also using a Decaying Dragon Key because this just reduces our shields, and you will just get natural shield gating a lot from this build. It's not necessary because we have so much survivability between all of our abilities, but it's just nice to have because it recharges that shield gate more often. But why don't we get it started? Why don't we? Even though we start with not a lot of energy, it's not really that big a deal because Gloom doesn't drain until you have enemies in your radius. So we just kill real quick. Hopefully we'll get an energy drop soon. Again, energy is not a problem on this build. But I'm going to just get my Twin out, start using my Glaive, so he'll use the Phantasma. And yeah, like if I want to CC enemies, I just do that. And nothing does anything. Seriously, nothing does anything to you. Oh, every enemy is just slowed, and like, you know, casting your third ability for the armor bonus can be used, but it requires you to turn off Gloom. And if I want to get him to my side real quick, I just teleport, and he stomps, and every enemy in a 33-meter radius is slowed, and like even more slowed by the stomp. It's just, you just cast that to get him near you, and then boom, hit the stomp. Nothing can do anything to you. Like I was saying though, to get the armor from the third ability, you do need to uncast your Gloom, or else enemies won't be able to shoot you quick enough, and that can leave you in a bit of a dangerous situation. So I personally do not like to use that. But, like, even without using the Celestial Stomp, this build is just fantastic. But when, you know, your shields do break, just get him near you, stomp, and then nothing will shoot at you. Gloom also slows Acolytes and most bosses, so, like, it's not even a threat. And if you do die, like I just did right there because I wasn't paying attention, you just become immortal. Because, like, Wukong's passive, you can't die. But if you effectively use the Celestial Stomp together, right there was an Eximus unit, so I got a little bit screwed up. But using the Celestial Stomp effectively, just do that, and get the Twin in to do that. Every time that your shields break, you'll be fine. And your shields don't really break that often, because, you know, again, everything is slowed, so nothing's really shooting at you. And I guess you can use this for a little bit of mobility if you want. Oh, everything gets stomped. Really damn good, and even Eximus can't do anything. If I wanted to improve the damage of my glaive, I just pull out my epitaph and then pull out my melee. Now he's priming everything for me. And just got my headshot kill somehow. But besides that, the only caveat to this build that I really say is, again, Eximus units and stuff like that. But your shield should be ready to have that shield gate on them, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And the fact that the Wukong is sometimes the AI is a little bit dumb. But if he just was running away, just teleport him near you and do that. Sadly, the natural talent mod doesn't affect the speed that he casts the stun. That will always be the same speed and it can't be affected, which is unfortunate. But it is how it is. And as you can see here, running him with the epitaph is actually phenomenal because he just primes everything in the area for you. And look at that. You can actually cast the stun while in your cloud. So if your shields break, just go into cloud, hold down your first ability, and boom. We're going, like, just throw on this frame whenever you just don't want to play the game. Or you, like, just aren't really taking it seriously. He's really, really good. I can see how his playstyle isn't that enticing to most people. But you cannot deny the strength that the Wukong has. It's just that good. And even these pesky Eximus units. You can just burst them down with the Phantasma if you want to. An Acolyte spawning in right now will be absolutely no problem because, again, Gloom slows them. And the Glaive is a fantastic Acolyte killer. So, absolutely no problem. We're just going to stun all these enemies. They can't do anything, and this Acolyte will just, you know, once he hops in that Gloom radius, ain't nothing he's going to be doing either. Obviously, Celestial Stomp can't affect them, but, like, yeah, all around just really strong. Boop. Boop. I'm actually going to run out of life support. But you guys have already seen how strong this is. I don't really think I need to display it anymore. Running the twin with the epitaph is actually really, really nice because he primes enemies, which gives us that extra viral damage and stuff. He is still talking even as I extract. Alright, so after listening to Vor speak about his anus key for hours on end, I think we can call it on this video, everybody. Wukong is just, like, he's just really, really good. He's one of those frames that kind of just, like, does everything, and I think that that's why he's so popular. He doesn't excel especially at anything, but he's not bad at anything. Even not going over his passive, which just gives him 4 extra lives, and all give him some insane buffs. Like, he's just a great frame, and I understand why a lot of people use him. Personally, not my favorite. I use a lot of other frames and practically only use Wukong to speedrun because on inside tile sets, I find him to be faster than Titania when you're not speedrunning like a specific thing over and over. But with that all done and said, I just want to say thank you, everybody. We are, the channel, like, we are doing so well. I have a Discord link in the description if you want to come join. We talk pretty frequently there, and I also would be live streaming when this video is going live, so come check it out if you want to hang out for a little bit. I do play with viewers every stream, and I just like to talk to you guys. But besides that, thank you so much for watching this one. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day, night, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!